What is the life of a writer like? You know, are you waking up in the morning and you already know exactly what stories you're headed out to go find, or how does this work for you?
Yes, sir, Lance. Right now, if you just ask me, hey, Chris, can you write down 10, 15 stories that you're working on? I can do that real easy and real fast, but the truth is, certainly I can't work on 10, 15 stories at one time. So you have this list and you're adding sources to it. You're trying to get the ducks in a row. And Vance, I'm going to try, right? I'm going to do my darndest, man, to pump out one solid story a week. And so if you're really trying to produce one content story a week and you're trying to use 3, 4 sources per story, that depends. It might be a couple of sources. It might be, 10 sources. But you've got to keep moving the ball constantly, keep moving the ball. So my computer just jumped on me. I fixed that. But anyhow, Vance, you got to keep your ear to the ground because I don't want to cast negative light on anybody. It's not my intention, but there are myriad stories out there in farming waiting to be told. The problem is that on average, most people don't want to sink their teeth into those stories and go after them because it's very, very difficult. And plus, certainly, everybody has a quota to fill as well. So, if you presented me with a story right now, Vance, and you said, hey, there's a farm in Illinois, this couple experienced a tragedy or they experienced a bounty, you should do that story. Hey, man, I'm all about it, Vance, but can I get in the door? So it takes a lot of time. So let me go right back to the beginning of my answer. I got 10, 15 stories I'm working on. If I rattled off the list, Vance, I think that you would find them of interest or significance. The problem is getting the ducks in a row. So maybe in a year from now, maybe those 10, 15 will be finished, maybe not.
So your writing is different than just sitting down and doing creative writing because you have to actually use facts and sources and tell a story. But do you have to face the same problems of a muse, like where you have to have some creative spark hit you, or that you hit writer's block in the way that a creative writer does?
I, I don't know, Vance, but I definitely, I don't know what chemical it is. I don't know what drug inside the body. If I get keyed up on a story and I know that it's good, you remember when you were either in t-ball or baseball and you swung the bat and the ball hit the fat part and you felt it in your core and it felt good. Didn't matter where the ball was going. You knew it jumped off the bat. That same feeling happens sometimes when you're writing a story and you get charged up and you can feel some kind of drug. I don't know if it's endorphin. I don't know what's going on, but it's very difficult to sleep. So when you don't want to sleep, you want to wake up and you want to finish that story. And there's obviously, if you're doing something, a boring story, then the feeling is the opposite. It's the last thing you want to do is tackle that. But something chemically, at least in my weak brain, is definitely going on. So that part is very exciting. There was a story, I think you know about it, Vance, of a guy named Robert Carl Stokes in North Carolina, one of the biggest crop insurance fraud stories really of all time. And that was $100 million drop in the bucket. In other words, what was stolen was probably 10 times that, and possibly much more. The details in that got me so charged up trying to put the pieces together that, once again, you get that level of excitement that's difficult to describe. And maybe Vance is dealing with human nature. You're seeing all these crazy moving parts, like you're watching a Coen Brothers film, and you're seeing people's behavior that is absolutely appalling, or it's wonderful. And everything in between, and you cast yourself in the middle of that, and you ask yourself, how would I be behaving? It's kind of like watching or reading Lonesome Dove, and you have all this cast of characters thrown at you, and you can't help but say, where do I fit in? And the answer, Vance, is it's not always laudatory, man. It's not always good, because you realize, oh Lord, I'm glad I didn't get caught up in that, because I'd be one of the guys going to the pen or something like that.
Yeah, man, that actually, when you are able to read the book and say, I'm not just the hero that's on the successful side of the journey,
Yeah.
like I could actually have been the villain in this story. It opens up a whole different aspect of the way you read something. And like, I think I could go back and read books that I read when I was younger and I didn't have that mindset, right? Because you always want to place yourself in the empathetic position of overcoming, beating the dragon, whatever. But if you put yourself on the side of a villain that really took an ideal and just went too far, you could be like, that could be me.
Oh yeah. It's when we were kids, Vance, you heard or you watched about the James gang, for example. It didn't matter how many people they killed or what have you. You had this creeping feeling on your shoulder of, well, I'd like to roll with Jesse a little bit. I can handle that. And you see it translated when you get older and you watch a film or read a book about a jewel thief hits the museum and goes through all these machinations and comes away with, I don't know, $20 million in jewels, steals. And there is a part of us as humans, we look at that and go, dang, I like that fella. I appreciate that. So it's always there, man. It's always there sitting on your shoulder.
Well, that's like Don Draper in Mad Men or Gordon Gekko in Wall Street, right? Like, if you're sitting there telling your wife, hey, I want to go be Gordon Gekko or Don Draper, they'd be like, no way. But in the back of your mind, you're like, all of those things that they have, this power, this control, this gravitas, wouldn't you love to have that? Because I would be good enough to use it for good and not evil.
That's the great point. And I think that's why the Lord made sure I'm not a rich man, wealthy man, power, nothing like that, because I know myself, Vance. I know myself, and I can imagine which way my life would have gone. Let me tell you something, man. When you think about modern day athletes or rock stars, and you think about the adulation that those fellas get, at least the athletes, a lot of them get that adulation from the time they're 13, 14 years old. You just put yourself into that situation, and you see how it might have corrupted your soul. And I'm always very impressed and actually astounded by the ones who come out good and end up with a balanced life. Because again, to give me that sort of praise and attention at that young age and have it carry on through, I don't have the core to have managed that in my life. I would have been some sort of failure, moral degenerate, if you want to call it like that.
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.